Hey, everybody, we should be live. It's Chase Oliver here, Libertarian, on this account at Chase for Liberty. But tonight is going to be a little bit different from maybe live streams you have seen before from me on these accounts. Because, first and foremost, this is not a live stream about me. This is a live stream that's about something that's far more important than me or any one person. And we're going to have a great guest on to talk about that topic in just a minute. But as a reminder, this is not a campaign live stream. This is not about any kind of campaigning. This is about, again, talking an issue that is far more important with a representative from an organization who is doing really, really important work on the ground at the grassroots level, which is something I personally believe in, which is direct and mutual aid to our communities when they are in need. And that's something that I think a lot of people who have followed me on all of these platforms pretty much believe in as well. So I'm excited to be, talking about this, even though it's a very serious topic and one that requires very serious consideration and is frankly quite emotional. So if you have not been aware, if you have not paid attention to the news and don't live in the southeast of the United States, we have just been hit with two major hurricanes in the region of the southeast. First was Hurricane Helene, a little over a week ago now, which did major damage to western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, parts of Florida and Georgia and Virginia even are still recovering from the storm. I personally know that members of my team were without power for over a week, and we saw, I went out to the area and I actually got to see some of the cleanup and the damage. I saw cars being pulled out of trees that had been floated up into trees. I got to see folks like the Cajun Navy doing their work on the ground, those kinds of things. It was it's very inspiring to see. And then, of course, we had Hurricane Milton just happen in the last couple of days, pounding into Florida, creating a lot of problem conditions as well there in Florida. Florida is typically a little more prepared for these things than I think the folks of the Carolinas and Tennessee were. You don't really expect when you live up in the mountains to be subject to flooding and things like this at the levels that Helene had caused. And I think Milton, we exactly knew the path it was going to be taking. And so we're thankful for those who were able to evacuate from the area. We're thankful for those who are still on the ground helping people in both of these areas. And so I'm going to bring on a friend of my staff who is working for Gulf Search and Rescue. They're an organization that does a lot of search and rescue efforts as well as direct aid on the ground in these storm-affected areas. And I thought it would be important for us to hear directly from people who are doing work on the ground. I think there's been a lot of misconception and misinformation about what's been happening and how it's been happening there. And I think it's really important for us to hear from those who are doing really good work on the ground, directly hearing their experiences and maybe kind of understanding why we need to divert our efforts or how we can support efforts in these storm hit regions of the country. And so without further ado, I'm going to bring on Stefana of Gulf Search and Rescue. Let me pop her into the stream. First off, I just want to, I will say, I'm just looking at some comments here. Floridian here, sitting in my car, charging my phone due to power being out. Joe, we hope you get that power back soon. Hey, Stefana, how you doing?
Good, how are
But
you?
I'm doing great. I imagine Joe out there without power is like a lot of folks right now. And we are empathizing with everybody who is without power, and hopefully you can stay safe and get everything powered back up shortly. I know folks have been scrambling to find Wi-Fi all through the region and just even a way to charge their phone. So, Joe, stay safe. Thank you very much for watching as you're charging your phone in your car. So at least you have internet data. They've gotten a lot better about that more recently. Yes, thank you for that as well. It's been great how fast Starlink and other things have been able to get internet on the ground. But Stefana, thank you for coming on and taking some time out of your admittedly very busy schedule for what you've been doing these last couple of weeks. So I'd love for you to introduce yourself and the work your organization does, and we'll just kind of go from there and start discussing these storms in particular.
Hi. Okay, so I'm Stefana. I'm actually flood and swift water certified technician through GolfSAR. I've also independently kind of gone out and done other organizations and certifications such as NASHAR, which is like a national search and rescue certified. I just recently got my helicopter aquatic rescue technician as well. So I'm able to deploy from helicopters and go down into waters and help people in need. Gulf SAR is actually, I've known them for years and been with them. But what they do is they get called in, usually by Homeland or somebody. And we are the people that are boots on the ground within before the storm hits, during the storm, and after. And it's the most crucial part because nobody kicks into gear to go and do rescues, at least for the first 48 hours. So it's all on volunteer basis.
Yeah, and like you said, it takes a while for any kind of formal organized effort to get put together on the ground. And so, as you said, in that crucial first 48 hours, it's up to individuals and communities and folks like yourself and Gulf SAR to do that crucial first search efforts. With Helene, I think we saw entire towns kind of wiped away by mudslides and landslides and floods. Some of the footage that we're seeing online is just, it's mind boggling because I love that region of the country. Like, I can tell you right now, I have family in Tennessee. I was just up in, Knoxville a couple weeks ago, driving through that region. I saw like all around where, like I was literally in a restaurant on the 31st of August that was that was underwater due to Helene. And there's, the amount of damage that's been done. I think we're not going to be seeing all this put together like instantly. This is going to be a years long effort. But I think what you're talking about is that immediate on the ground effort. So what does that effort look like? So what is it? What would be, if a storm hits a region, y'all are activated. What does a normal kind of search and rescue look like? Like, how many folks are on the vessel? Like, what are you doing? And what's that general first 48 hours look like to you?
Usually we usually try to get in the day before. They have team meetings, they'll come up with a plan of attack. We usually station somewhere. The safest bet is usually a parking garage for us. It's usually the safest structure during a hurricane. And it truly just depends on how many people we like, we can get to volunteer who are certified because we trust teams. We trust our teammates, and getting out there, you got to be able to, you can't just, as much as we would love to help and have help from like the public and stuff, those certifications are very crucial. So usually about three people on a boat. You got to have one that will tether and let a swimmer go out during rescues and can stand by, and one to operate the boat. So three minimum. We station, and then after the first usually 24 hours, we'll start going out in 12-hour rotations, send a crew of people out and stuff like that. We correspond with emergency management, local sheriff's departments, team up with them and go based off their needs and their calls.
Yeah, and so during Helene, what region were you first kind of activated to, just to kind of get ourselves familiar with the geography that you've been working with?
I was initially in Perry. I had teamed up with an emergency management response team with the local fire department in Perry, Florida. I was down there, I think 4 days. And then I lose track of time. It's so bad when I'm out in the field. And
Totally
then
understandable.
I came home for 2 days and then I was sent to Asheville.
Yeah, Asheville is one of the hardest hit regions up there. I have friends who right now are just, they've got power there. They're trying to do what they can, and prayers go out to those folks. And then this, of course, the surrounding areas. There's a lot of small villages and towns surrounding Asheville, just kind of pocketed in those mountains, those small mountain communities like Chimney Rock, Black Mountain, and some others that were very hard hit. I was actually out in the Black Mountain area when I was kind of trying to kind of get a glimpse of what first responders were doing, trying to get a firsthand experience of it. And even then, let me tell you right now, those guys are very busy. They're not really standing around
Yeah.
waiting to talk to folks. So you kind of have to catch them as they go. And we were glad to bring up some aid as well. And it's just amazing to see the work that they've done. So you're going out in a crew full of, crew with 3 or 4 folks, maybe on a boat. And you said you're tethering. So you're putting yourself into the floodwaters. And I imagine, if you've ever seen the footage of these, I mean, it's like a torrential current, like it is a hard current.
It is.
And so I imagine you're trying to get upstream from wherever it is you're trying to rescue. So I imagine maybe you spot somebody who's kind of stranded. You get upstream from them and you send a swimmer downstream to kind of catch them and then bring them in, reel them back in. Is that kind of
It's
that's
kind
kind
of the
of what my mind's
concept.
eye is bringing
Yeah.
me. If you want to,
Yeah, sometimes we do it from shore if it's easier, like if they're in a river or anything and they're floating down, we'll go downstream. and, get our ropes ready and throw them out and then reel them in. If not, we have backup, further down if our throws don't catch and stuff like that. That's where our rescue bags come in. We have jackets. There's like when I was in Perry, there was a whole little community of trailers that had floated up against like a tree line, and there was people out there, and so I had to get off the boat and swim up to them, and I was tied to, I had my life jacket was tethered, and I had my guy. He was back on the boat. I swam to the trailer, grabbed one, grabbed him under their arms, brought him back to the boat, grabbed and went back, grabbed another, and we ended up getting four people off that one trailer because it was
Yeah, and
completely submerged.
the conditions of this water, I think people may be think in their mind's eye that, oh, this is just like a river, it's something you normally swim in, but what you're swimming in is debris and all kinds of things. I mean, you got to think if a sewer line is ruptured, it's probably not the cleanest water, and so I imagine that's also a huge concern for y'all, is doing your best to try to get people out of that water, because that water is very dirty and it's probably not safe.
Yes.
Down power lines, all sorts of things could be causing problems in water. So that is what I think is something that maybe not a lot of folks really think about, is like not just being in water, but what kind of water that is. Like, yeah.
Yeah, we wear wetsuits. Those are our safest bet to protect majority of our skin, and they're thicker. So if we do come up against something, I mean, I've had stuff float downstream and hit me. Like I think I told Kelsey the other day, I know it wasn't an alligator, but something definitely swam past me with a lot of force, and I was a little scared. But I mean, you never know what to expect, especially in Florida or Louisiana when they hit the southern states, and there's just all sorts of things.
Oh yeah, some of those catfish and snapping turtles down in that area are as big as an alligator. So
Oh man.
it's no joke, and like, it takes a lot to do that kind of work, and not just in terms of like, hey, I'm willing to get out in the muck of the water, but I imagine this work can take quite a toll on folks, just because of the nature of the work. You're rescuing as many people as you can, but sometimes you're not able to rescue everybody. But if you could, this is something that affects people of all ages. I can imagine you've probably rescued people young and old, um, and that's got to be, that's got to, like I said, take a toll on first responders. So I did want to let folks know that I'm going to be sharing through my social media. A friend of mine out in Asheville did give me a great resource for pro bono mental health care folks. So I'm going to be sharing that through my channels to make sure that those who are in the region, particularly in the Asheville region, who have been first responders, been going through some of this, or just living through the experience, like living through the experience of having your entire life flooded, or losing a business, or losing a home. We want to make sure those folks can reach out and get the help they need, because sometimes when you're doing this very tough work, or living through the experience of a flood or a hurricane, you need to talk to people. So we're going to make sure that our my social media channels are releasing that information, and I just want to say thank you for the work you do. So, and I do mention it being hard work, in terms of, it's not glamorous, first off, but also it does take that emotional toll. If you could speak to kind of the human impact that you think these storms, particularly Helene, have had, and how that relates to maybe some other storms you've responded to. I think it seems like we're seeing a greater loss of life than maybe we have since Katrina, if I'm not mistaken. So if you could speak to kind of how this compares to maybe some other storms you've experienced or responded to in the past.
Yeah, so I've worked since Harvey doing a lot of different situations. Laura was a huge impact, and I've been saying since the beginning of this year that I felt like switching between, the El Nino and El Nino years, that it was going to be rough. And when Helene hit, like we're used to working hurricanes and flash flooding and stuff like that. Um, but the severity of the storm and the flash flooding in Asheville, it was just devastating. I worked the Kentucky floods in 2022, and that one really, I think there's still only one person missing from that flood. Um, and it was hard to see because these people have lived here 40, 50 years and never seen a creek get higher than your ankle, or, the rivers get higher than what they, not even 5 feet than what they're used to. And so these are people that have literally, I mean, lost everything. I met a woman who lost her husband 2 years ago, and it was just her and her three sons, and she lost her job, she lost her home, she lost everything, and she was staying in a shelter. But as far as confirmed deaths, it's going to take at least a year to, I mean, we still have hundreds, if not right at 1,000 people missing, and I don't know if we'll ever recover them because of
Yeah.
the mud and stuff like that. So the severity is definitely intense. Like, it's hard to talk about. Like, it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I would just on the surface level of this kind of look at it as kind of a Katrina level event, and I think if we're the pictures we're seeing, I'm seeing stories like I saw the New York Times covered a young man who had just opened a new business in the area. He'd opened up like a
Yeah.
social gathering space that had been, and the quote that stuck with me is I had my dream for 32 days. And then the
Yep.
storm came, right? And so, and he had said, nobody had ever seen flooding over 4 feet in Asheville before. And he's like, and the water line was over 10 feet. And you can see it on the building. And then, of course, you hear stories about loss of life. I did see a story today about how 2 dogs have been rescued, but sadly, the owners had lost their life. This was in Milton. And, the pets are now in the hands of family members of the owners, but like, that's got to be a traumatic. It's not just for the 2-legged folks out there, the 4-legged folks, the fur babies that everybody has. They've been traumatized as well. There's a lot of missing pets that happens all the time during these storms, and so we're hoping they can also be reunited. But that human cost is something that I think signifies the importance of neighbors coming together to help one another. This is a
It
community.
does.
The mountains of North Carolina and Tennessee, I think, are going to be a community that's going to be rebuilding itself for a long period of time. As I said, the work you do is extremely important. That initial search and rescue, that first 48 hours to a week of like getting people out, making sure people have those immediate resources as the greater organization finally hits the ground and can start planning with local resources. But I think this is something we're going to be seeing for a long period of time, and so I encourage people to find organizations that exist like Gulf Search and Rescue, like the Cajun Navy, like Samaritan's Purse, like churches in the area that will be helping out their neighbors for the years to come. So if you're seeing the work that that Stefana's doing and you're saying, hey, how can I help? If you could drop what are the socials right now for a Gulf Search and Rescue if folks want to learn more about the organization after this and maybe perhaps contribute themselves either through their resources or if they're certified to be doing this to join you in your efforts next time. So what is their socials?
I know that we have Facebook and they have a website also, because I know through our website we use the app, which people are allowed to download, and it will send out a location even without cell service, is what I love. But Golf, GULFSAR on Facebook, and then golfsar.org.
I'm going to pop that right up here. So that is golfsar.org. So if you want to go there, you can learn more about this amazing organization and the work that folks like Stefana are doing on the ground. Again, this live stream is not about me. It's not about any work or anything that I'm doing. This is about the work that folks like Stefana are doing on the ground. Excuse me, to provide immediate search and rescue efforts in the wake of these storms, as well as helping to connect local resources to folks who are in need. They do a lot of great work. So please get out and support them and other organizations that are on the ground doing that work. The folks who are in these organizations are not stealing your money through taxation. They are accepting your money through donation. And so be proactive and help these organizations on the ground do what you can to make that change. If you're not able to get out there in the boat and jump into that mucky water yourself, help provide the resources to allow folks like Stefana to do that work and be a positive light in your community and in your world by doing that kind of a thing. This is why mutual and direct aid is such an important factor into what folks do in these storms. I want to see if we got any questions. By the way, guys, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, and we would love to answer those for you. So
If they don't
Um,
want to get out on a boat, there is the United Cajun Navy where they can go ahead. They've got multiple point of distributions. They're called pods set up from Georgia to Tennessee to Florida. Same thing with Cajun Navy 2016 and Samaritan's Purse and everything. I mean, there's multiple ways to volunteer. But like you said, it's just like the people coming together and trying to bring a little bit of light to the situation. Even I met a lady the other day who just wanted cat food and she cried and she cried and she was just so happy that somebody brought her cat food. So it's literally the little things when it comes to helping everybody in these times of need. And a lot of people, you brought up the aspect of the mental health thing. A lot of people don't realize. I had a friend, actually my best friend in Florida. She lost her cleaning company during Ian. She lost all of her clients and had to completely start from scratch. So like the toll that it takes on people, including small business owners, like the one that you had mentioned, he had just printed his menus for his social and it's just gone in the blink of an eye. And everything
mhm.
that they've, worked so hard for to provide for their family. And she sat down like 6 months later and she was like, I never realized emotionally how much damage it did to me. And they don't shed light to that. Like it's storm PTSD is very real, whether you're experiencing it or you're living through it or you're helping through it. There's multiple forms. It's
I
very
can
real.
imagine. Yeah, I can imagine the both the experience of it and the helping to respond to it can take its toll, very much so. And so again, we want to thank those who are taking the time and the effort to help those who are in need, and we want to send our empathy and our our love out to those who have experienced these storms and had to suffer the worst consequences of when Mother Nature runs wild through a region, and which is what we've seen. It is mind-boggling. Again, when you're watching some of the footage, like I've been in that region before. I've been through those mountains. I've camped up there. I've gotten a cabin up in that region, and it's beautiful. And you just never think to see what would happen if you just see just a torrential path of water carving through those mountains, which is what we saw. We got a comment here. Having been in this situation before, the direct help was always more effective. I watched the absolute botched government response to Hurricane Charlie firsthand. I'm trying to remember exactly where Hurricane Charlie was. Was that a Florida one or a Gulf one? Off the top of my head, I'm not remembering.
I
But I
think that
can
was a
say,
coast one, if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken.
well, what I can say is I absolutely think that direct aid is the quickest way to get that aid to people in the most effective way. It's why I believe personally in decentralization. And while I think even the people who are on the ground from the government are trying their best, they're stuck in kind of a botched system of red tape and a lot of bureaucratic mess. And so that prevents aid from getting to people as quickly as it could or from being as streamlined as it could. I think that's where we need to level our criticism. It's not at the people who are on the ground, even if they're working for the government, who are trying to help, because oftentimes their hands are tied by people who are way above their pay grade, who have created conditions that make it really hard for them to maybe be as effective as they could. So we do want to shout out anybody who's on the ground, even those who are stuck in the kind of the bureaucratic nightmare. And thank goodness, Stefana, you're not in that. You're in a direct aid organization who's doing work on the ground, who's having to coordinate sometimes with these folks, but you're not part of that red tape machine. Thank goodness, right? That's less of a
We
headache for
have
you.
learned, we've
Yeah.
learned over the years, that's for sure, especially where we set up like pod locations. And um, we typically do it at churches because we
Hmm.
have learned that those are not governmental access areas, I guess you can put it, and they can't be taken over. So that is one thing we have learned over time is when we volunteer and we set up a pod and we come in and we bring that supplies in order for it to keep coming in and keep going to the community, we typically set up at churches and go from there.
Yeah, well, I think that's again, direct in aid is always going to be the quickest way to help out folks, and we want to create hopefully a world in which it's more accessible to have that decentralized direct aid to folks. But that is neither here nor there right now. What we're trying to do right now is respond on the ground with the conditions that we have, however imperfect they are. We want to thank anybody who's able to help, and in particular those who are part of that first 48-hour response. We want to say thank you to them. Another person we want to thank, Scientific Libertarian brings this up. Dolly Parton is awesome. Yes, she is. She
Yes.
donated $1 million of her own money as well as $1 million from her organizations to a charity that's devoted to helping folks recover from the storm. She is the patron saint of Tennessee, I believe. So yeah, shout out to Dolly Parton. Thank you for working 9 to 5 to help out those in the storm region. She's amazing. Let's get some other. So that was Florida where Charlie was hit. Direct hit to southwestern Florida. Thank you for that update there. The chairman. Um, Illinois has an excellent group. Illinois SAR. Well, shout out to the Illinois SAR. If you are up in that way, Ken Mattis shouting you out. Check them out if you happen to be up that way. Let's see. Bitcoin Veterans has been doing a lot of work. That includes Shane Hazel. Shane Hazel is a former candidate for governor out here in the state of Georgia. Good that they are doing work on the ground. Here's a shout out from Cheryl and Chartle. Thank you, Stefana. Bless you and praying for your safety and well-being, body, mind, and spirit. That we are all praying for that for you and all the other folks in your organizations who are doing that work. Again, if you have any comments, feel free to drop them here as you're watching the stream. Feel free to share this stream out. We'll be on for just a little while longer. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just want to say, all right, Kelsey. We know Kelsey. I love Kelsey. Kelsey, yes, I know. Shout out to her, and shout out to Princess Kiara out there, who hopefully is also watching. What was the most touching story Stefana has experienced in North Carolina? You can expand that out to Tennessee or Florida as well, but I think in Helene in general, what's the most touching story you think you've seen as you've gone through this process? And then we'll kind of close things out on a high note. But I know some of these can be quite much. But yeah, feel free to share your experience.
I've had quite a few. One most recently, like I said, I flying the woman home. Her mother lived in San Diego and she was on disability. She lost her husband. And I put out there on Facebook, like, hey, I'm looking for donations. Like, she had lost everything, her job, her rental home, and everything. And it was her and 3 boys just living in the shelter. And she wanted to get home so she could be in a bed and see family and stuff like that. She was just grateful to be alive. And we raised the funds and we got her flown home Monday to San Diego to be with her mother.
Oh, that's lovely.
Another one was a woman who got separated. I won't mention names, but she got separated from her parents and she thought they had passed away. And the reunification after a week of not, they were in a completely different shelter, had no way of getting contact. And once we started getting the Starlinks in, they were able to finally get some cell service and get in contact. And we reunited them. And it was just a very emotional experience. Like, she got separated, the house went down. She was on one side, they were on the other, and she didn't spot them. And it was emotional, but it was worth seeing. It was.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that has got to feel like a total relief. You know, I could only imagine if I had been separated from family and loved ones, and not knowing, and then getting to see that, you know, ultimate reunification. That's got to be very rewarding for organizations who can help make that happen. And that's got to be, you know, I think that is a very it's a great thing to kind of think on and to hold on to, is when you get to see those reunifications. Not everybody can be, but when you get to make that happen, that's very important. I mean, and I think, you know, we'll kind of, I'll make sure we get to shout out our particulars at the end of this once more, but I just want to kind of end on this kind of thought here, which is, you know, when we see these storms hit our communities, you know, when we see the worst happen, whether it's a flood or a tornado or whatever kind of disaster response there is, communities come together to help each other. And as devastating as some of these storms can be, and some of this can be to the lives of those who lost loved ones or property or their business, you know, or their pets, as we talked about it a little earlier. What is really encouraging to see is the American spirit coming together around helping their neighbors, right? We are a people that, while we're a group of very individualistic, you know, people, we're all from diverse backgrounds and different experiences in life and different nationalities and faiths and genders and orientations and everything across the rainbow, right? Like every bit of the spectrum. When these rains come, all these people come together to help one another. When you're pulling people out of the water, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not asking them who they voted for in the last election or what church they belong to or or any of those things. You're just concerned about saving a human life, because at the end of the day, all human life is precious.
It
And it's
is.
something that when you can pull someone out of the muck or get someone off of a roof, um, you find out how we all have that kind of common humanity. And so, as devastating these storms are, there's always the silver lining to a storm cloud. And I think that silver lining each time is organizations like yours and others that come out and help people on the ground and really show the best of what humanity is. As Mr. Rogers used to say, look for the helpers, right? Those are the people that
Yep.
you want to find. And so, when we see these things happen, we want to look for the helpers. Lisa says it right. Bless you for all the work you do from Florida. Thank you, Lisa, for that. And thank you so much for what you've done. And I want to thank you for taking just a little bit of your time to come out and talk with us about what your experiences have been on the ground and what this kind of feels like from that ground perspective, like actually being in it, and just discussing a little bit. The last thing I would want to touch on is misinformation and misconception. Is it very easy for that kind of stuff in this experience where so much is happening at once? Is it really easy for that to happen? And I even think maybe some of it is not ill meaning. It is just not having maybe all that information on the ground. If you could speak a little to that, and then we'll let you get out of here, because I do think it's one important thing that we do want to hit on
Yeah.
in the news a lot lately.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. It's so easy. Especially with social media nowadays. You get one person that gets upset and they just instantly run to social media, especially with like, people are wanting the total death count. That's something that with Katrina, for example, took forever. Um, we cannot confirm a death until it has been identified and the coroner has gone over it. And, a lot of people are like, oh, there's bodies on the streets, and that's just rumors because they see black tarps and stuff like that. Um, Social media definitely misconstrues a lot. Now, there is a lot that people don't see firsthand. Um, Especially with like emergency management response and the systems that we have to follow. We, as I said to Kelsey the other day, if we do recover bodies, we bag them and tag them. We can't just add that to a count until it's been confirmed. That body could have been laid there by somebody else, which happens during storms. That body could have floated out of a casket. We don't know firsthand when we're out there. So a lot of that does get misconstrued, but it's all in emergency management response and how they have a whole system of procedures that we have to go through. And
Yeah,
then, like I said, people run to social media and it goes from one thing to two different things. And they do try to shelter a lot because they don't want a lot of people like, oh, we got bodies here. Let me run in and go look and, get my 15 seconds of fame and run out type situation. So they do try to protect the public eye to some things. Um, but it's all about processes
yeah,
and how they have to do it.
and I think you're right, and it's important to know kind of what those processes are on the ground, so you don't have misunderstandings and miscommunication. Social media is the ultimate. It's like it used to be the game of
Yes.
telephone. Where like you'd whisper something into someone's ear and it'd go around, and by the time it'd be a completely different message. That happens a lot, I think, especially in these emergency situations where there's not reliant power, reliable internet a lot of times. And I thank you for talking about that 15 seconds of fame. Let's just go ahead and speak out blanketly against disaster tourism. If you're not there to actually help, don't bother coming there to film your TikToks, right? Like if you're not actually being affected by the storm, or someone who's coming out to make help, yeah, and provide resources. When I went out to try to speak to folks and did speak to a few folks in the Cage Navy, I didn't come empty handed. I came with resources in my hand to help them deploy and do good work.
Yeah.
Because at
We
the very
appreciate
least, if
that.
you're going to try to at least see what's going on, bring things to help people. And if I had been needed for help, they pretty much had everything well in hand. Let me just say right now, those guys were taking care of business. But if they had needed help, I'd have been there provided they'd asked. That's the main thing, is let's not make this into a disaster tourism thing. But again, your organization, I did want to shout it out before we go to make sure folks can check this out, gulfsar.org. It's more important now than ever, as we are seeing the effects of these storms, to support these organizations that are going to do that direct search and rescue on the ground. Again, Gulf SAR. is a nonprofit. So please donate to them, give to them in the wake of these storms, as well as other organizations, as we've mentioned, Samaritan's Purse, the Cajun Navy. And again, your local church, if you live in the South and you see yourself in a storm affected area, your local community center. Find those local resources on the ground. Let's help each other. Let's help our neighbors. And I think that's the best way we can share, that American spirit. Appreciate you getting this info out here in Southwest Florida, Chase. Well, thank you, Free. I hope you have a wonderful night. I want to say thank you, Stefano, for coming on, giving us a little insight. I'm going to let you get back to being able to not think about the storms for a little while after you've been in it so much.
I
But
head
I
back
hope,
Sunday.
hey, well, you know what? Peace, love, and liberty to you and all the ones who are doing that. Stay safe out there doing the work you're
Thank
doing.
you.
And let's stay in touch. And if we need to share more information about this in the future, if this continues, we'd love to do that. But thank you so much. And I'm
Thank
going to
you.
let you pop out of here. Everybody say goodbye to Stefana. And I'm going to say goodbye to each and every one of you here on the stream here. I want to say thank you for taking a little bit of time. Those of you who have stayed this and watched with us, thank you so much for being a part of this stream. Again, the best way you can help folks in your community is to be part of that direct and mutual aid. Get out there and be part of the change you want to see. So just a few last things we want to say. Yes, be safe, sister. That's what we all agree on. Thank you so much. Uh, hey, Chase, my brother is in Florida without power. Hopefully he gets that power back soon. Jordan, in the meantime, I hope he is staying safe and being helped out by his community. Minnie Free says hi, too. Thank you so much, Minnie Free. You have a wonderful day. Bye. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you very much. You have a great night, and peace, love, and liberty to you and all of those you know.